Oh, right, sorry. Let's get that one cranking. Right. So, are a child's actions outside the home 100% responsibility of the parents? I like this because I screwed up when I was writing this one and I put R in the wrong spot. If this statement is true and if you agree with it, then the reason that there's a spelling error there is my parents' fault, not mine, which I don't agree with. Some people might. Anyways, what I want to do before getting into it is if you're interested in jumping in, I'm just going to drop this link in the comments. Hit that link and jump on the call and have a chat with me. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me your opinion. I'd love to hear your take on it and why. If you've thought through this, what's the conclusion that you sort of got to? And yeah, what sort of led you there? Anyway, let's get into it and see where this discussion went. Yes, difficult when both parents are of different opinions. Okay. And I understand a lot of parents will actually agree with this point of view. And I'm not saying one's right or wrong than the other, but everyone's got their opinions. I just find it interesting as to why people form their opinions. So my response to this was, so for this example, a kid goes to school, bullies someone, the actions aren't the kid's responsibility, then the parents should be the ones getting punished for the child's behavior. Would you agree the child gets no consequences in situations like this? Oh no, definitely consequence for the child. If there's going to be consequence for the child, then they must in some way be responsible, right? That's part of responsibility. Consequences, both good or bad. So how are parents 100% responsible for the child's actions? Would be the same in a positive instance. Child wins a sports competition, they get the trophy and accolades, not the parents. See it as giving them the best foundations from which to build. Another spelling error. That one's my mum's fault. Through their own decisions. And part of them making their own decisions is being responsible for them and accepting consequences, both good and bad. So when they stuff up, parents are there to guide and course correct. When they do well, parents are there to encourage and foster that behavior. I don't see that encouragement or course correction as being responsible. I see that as being a great guide, great parent, great mentor, great coach, great teacher. It's not responsibility, they're different things. Potentially responsible for the environment that will create certain behaviors, but I mean, even that's got a lot of variation in it as well. So it is a tricky one, but I find it to be interesting. And I know a lot of kids model the behavior of their parents, right? And that can sort of complicate things a little bit. But here's my take on it. You're looking at what's going to be the most beneficial for the kids long term. Okay, so if you're the parent and you're taking full responsibility for them and they're not getting any consequences of their decisions in sort of the real world, so they get a measure to see where they're at, why they're sort of doing certain things and what that actually means. If they're not getting that feedback, they also have no power to change that situation, right? If they are getting that feedback, then they can make changes in their behavior, their actions, their decision making that will actually change the outcome. So let me use an example from my life, because the way that you perceive things creates your reality. My belief that I've adopted for myself is that I am 100% responsible for every single thing that occurs in my life, even if it's not pleasant. And even if in reality I'm not actually responsible for it, I take responsibility anyways, because I see that as something that can empower me. Here's why. So I used the example on the Facebook episode of my mum, on the Facebook Live episode of my mum getting Alzheimer's when I was a kid. And she had it, we didn't know that she had it for like 10 years. It started when I was around 10 or a little bit younger. And we didn't find out till I was 18. Now, going through a process where your mum, who's an amazing mum by all counts, not a great wife, but an amazing mother, seems to slowly not care about you. It's a very difficult thing to face as a child. And through that period, I was blaming. It was her. She was bad. She was doing this. Da, da, da. She wasn't sick. She was acting. It was attention seeking. Yada, yada, yada. All the excuses under the world. In the world. When we found out what was actually going on, realized that we were wrong. Both myself and my sisters did some pretty bad things towards my mum in that time. She did some horrible things to us too. She wasn't in control of those things. We didn't realize that. So at the end of it, there was a few years where you go through a lot of guilt, a lot of really being upset, mourning, but it doesn't achieve anything if you stay there. So it's like, right, how do you move forward? I decided on a more extreme sort of take of things to decide that her illness was my fault, my responsibility. I could have done things different. And I was 10 when it started. So how could I have done things different? By taking that approach, right, I was at a point where even when she was getting sick, with what I'd sort of learned, I believe there would have been a chance to turn it around had we as kids actually been in control. There were a whole bunch of family things that went on where we didn't get to actually see mum or look after her or care her. She got taken by her sisters and was away, and that. Beside the point. But the illness itself, by deciding I was responsible for it and having personally experienced the amount of pain that it caused, I made a very clear and strong decision that I would never, ever get like this myself, but I would also learn every single thing about it in order to prevent that. Like I had to learn about it. I had to learn that there was a way out of it, or I had to have a very, very good suicide plan prepared for when that was happening to me. There had to be a point where I could pull the trigger. There was an amazing film done on this that was just, God, it was so accurate. And she'd prepared her own suicide plan, and it failed just because she made a mistake. Her mind had gone and something happened and she screwed it up. But she portrayed it so well. I forgot, it was the lady who was in, not Jodie Foster, who was in Silence of the Lambs, but in the sequels, there was another redheaded actor that was in it. She was brilliant. She's the like boss chick in the Divergent films that's like overthrowing the bad ones, and then she becomes the bad one. That chick. Anyways, great movie if you want to get an understanding of how that disease actually functions if it's not reversed. Anyways, so I learned about it and I looked at all these examples where people had actually reversed it. And it had been reversed at certain points by, changing certain dietary protocols and doing these different approaches. And I was like, holy crap, it's not actually a death sentence. Like, this is insane. Which was also annoying because I couldn't do any of that for mum because we didn't have access to her. Legally, we weren't even allowed to. So, learning those things though, and taking that approach and deciding I was responsible meant that I didn't want to die at the age that my mum effectively did mentally, which was when 2004, she was like in her mid to late 40s. I thought I had more, which would only be like 15 years away or something like that for me. Wow, imagine that. That's scary. Far out. That's a weird thing to think about. Holy crap. Whoa. Yeah, so that would mean I'd be prepping my suicide in like 15 years if I were to follow the same sort of path that my mum was on. And that, again, me being responsible and not wanting people to sort of go through the dragged out 20-year process that it was with my mum, because it's just slow torture, not only for her, but everyone around us. It's just not a nice thing to experience. And I then went out and learned all these other things. And I was like, holy crap, like I can do all these things to, improve my brain health, like exercise my brain, make sure that it's working, make sure that it's constantly growing, make sure all these new interactions are being formed so that it actually doesn't drop into that. Make sure, do things to manage my emotions, manage my stress, make sure that I'm physically fit, sound, eating, like controlling my food, my diet, what's going into my body is going to affect how my body functions. All these things became very, very important to me and have empowered me enormously that not only is Alzheimer's never going to be an issue for me, but, things like cancer never will be either. And you learn about these things. And it's just very interesting if you choose to take a different approach and full responsibility to life, how empowering that is. And that's enormous. So when parents say that they want to be 100% responsible for the actions of their children outside their home, I see that personally as robbing their opportunity to grow as a human being. And I think that's unfortunate. I don't think most people see it my way, but that's because I choose to take the view on life that I do. That's just my personal opinion. Other people might disagree. If you do disagree and you're watching it, hit the link, jump in the chat and tell me why. Or come on and have a chat. Like, tell me why you would disagree with that premise. What am I missing? I don't know what that sound was. Something on Facebook. Yeah, so look, I'm just going to leave it there. But for me, I don't think the parents are responsible at all for the actions. They're responsible for their actions, which will create the environment that lead to the kids making certain decisions and actions. And you can certainly influence it, but no, I don't see them as 100% responsible at all. At all. I think it's better if they adopt the standpoint that they're not responsible at all and give the responsibility to the child as soon as possible. There are obviously situations where you as the parent make decisions for the child and their long-term benefit, things that they don't understand yet. But where you can delegate responsibility, I think it's really important to do that as fast as possible, because I just think that fast tracks their growth, fast tracks their development, and longer term, it's best for them. So I'm going to leave it there. That's my thoughts. Drop your comments. If you disagree with me, let me know your thoughts, your experience on this. Tell me. I want to hear. And I'll see you on the next one. If I don't spill water on my computer again. That wasn't my best moment.